Welcome to Feminine Roadmap Podcast. I'm your host, Gina-r-Farrar. Each week, I bring you an inspiring conversation to help you navigate the challenges and changes of midlife so that you can not only survive, but thrive in your second half. Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. It is Gina here, and today we have a topic that most of us women think about on a daily basis, which is menopause. I have a solution and a resource that could potentially change your experience. Today on my show, I have Taylor-Sittler. He's the co-founder at the-cusp, and he's a physician entrepreneur. And joining him is Valerie Williamson. She's a member of Cusp Management Team and a menopausal woman and client of the-cusp. This is telemedicine for perimenopause and menopause extending into midlife. So, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Gina, for having us.
My pleasure. And Valerie, thank you also for joining us and giving us the female perspective on the cusp today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Excellent. So Taylor, why don't you give us a picture of the mission, the message, the vision of the cusp?
Absolutely. The cusp is really here to provide perimenopause and menopause solutions for women as they navigate this journey. What we have found is that, so many women have physicians who don't understand enough about this problem, this transition, how changing hormones can really impact their lives. And so we have set out to create a telemedicine solution that you can get from your home. You can have video visits with a doctor. You can communicate with us through chat and through an app that we have, and to provide the solutions that women really need, both natural solutions as well as traditional medical solutions such as hormone therapy. The reason that we started the cusp kind of dates back to my previous company, Color Genomics. Color is really dedicated to making genetic testing as a part of primary care. Actually, I'm very proud. I'm going to throw a little plug in here for Color. They've launched a COVID test, so they're pumping out 10,000 tests a day to enable people across the country to get tested. Our first product at Color Genomics was a genetic test for women for breast and ovarian cancer risk. And a couple of years ago, I went down to San Diego and did a special on local news with a woman who had purchased our test. She had been denied the genetic test by insurance 3 times. At that time, it cost about $4,000. We had dropped the price down to $250. So she could afford it. She went and bought our test. And, she was one of those women, like so many that I saw, who were very proactive. They understood the health risks that they were facing. And despite the fact that they were told no multiple times by their doctors, they kind of kept at it. And this particular woman, she was 35. She'd already had her kids. When she found out that she had a genetic risk for breast cancer, she had her ovaries out, which was a common, potential thing to do at that time, and found out that she had stage 2 ovarian cancer. Now, had she not had her ovaries removed, she probably would have died of ovarian cancer, because most women don't know they have it until it's too late. And that was, I think, one of the stories that really impacted me at Color. I found that there was it's almost a generation of women. They're 35 to 55. They're taking care of kids. They're taking care of their parents. At some point, they're also taking care of themselves. And they're the ones that value health and are willing to actually spend money on healthcare. And they actually control most of the household spending on health. When I left Color Genomics in 2017, I took about a year off first, but I wanted to start something that would change the way that we practice medicine. And I wanted to help this particular group of women because it was really clear that they weren't getting the help that they need, even though they really value health. And so we set out to build the cusp as a new way to practice medicine, a way to do it better, to do it more systematically, more streamlined, and more holistically. And over the past year and a half, we've built a team of really great physicians and technologists. We have some of the leading experts in menopause care. Dr. Luann Brizendine, for instance, who wrote The Female Brain and was a neuropsychiatrist at UCSF. Dr. Tori Hudson, who's a naturopath up in Portland, are 2 of our kind of leading menopause specialists on our medical advisory board. Mindy Goldman, who's a professor at UCSF and specializes in helping women who have had a hysterectomy, usually as a result of breast cancer, and then need care for the immediate menopause that comes on after that. So what we've tried to do is really pull together these experts and create one streamlined process for care that combines both the natural elements like black cohosh, Siberian rhubarb, things like intermittent fasting that lots of women are interested in, and with more traditional medical solutions such as hormone therapy or venlafaxine or gabapentin, which are commonly prescribed for conditions around menopause and then following menopause. The other thing that we've really discovered in this journey is that the changing hormones that women experience in menopause really start to put them at risk for disease later on. And so it's important not only to provide solutions to help them feel better during that perimenopausal transition, but also then to provide care and help set them up for a better second half of life. And that includes everything from lifestyle changes such as diet, exercise, yoga, meditation, as well as, thinking about things like hormone therapy and whether or not that's a good thing to do for you going forward. The first thing that we have launched as a part of this is what we're calling our at-home hormone test, which looks at 3 hormones that are helpful in figuring out when a woman might go through menopause. And what we can do now, we're offering it for a limited time at $49 as a promotional rate. Also, as we're just getting things started for our early customers. And we're offering that as a way for women to begin to understand perimenopause and menopause, because many of them, what we have seen in our research is that many of them don't understand it. And when they go into it, they're not sure whether the symptoms they're experiencing are just part of life, or is this something that they actually have to deal with? And so the test is really centered on helping them understand what the changes are that they're experiencing, what to expect in terms of the hormone changes, and then what they can do about it.
So you mentioned hormones in cancer. I do have a question for you on that. So hormone replacement therapy, there's 2 camps, right? There's the camp that says it leads to cancer, and then there's the camp that says, no, if you do it before a certain age, it protects you from cancer. Mm-hmm. And so where does the cusp help a woman make the right decision for her when it comes to hormone replacement therapy? Because I personally use progesterone cream, and it's magic for me. It keeps me feeling normal. So. Mm-hmm. But that's different, I think, maybe than hormone replacement therapy. Can you kind of clarify that for me, please?
Sure. So progesterone actually is an element of hormone replacement therapy. Typically, when women talk about hormone replacement therapy, it's a combination of estrogen and progesterone. The progesterone is usually given to protect the uterine lining. And so women who don't have a uterus actually will just get estrogen therapy. And so I'll come back to that in a minute because it impacts risk of cancer. So the cancer debate has been going on for a long time. In 2002, there was a massive study that came out called the Women's Health Initiative that established a link between breast cancer and hormone therapy. Since then, there has been a lot of back and forth about this. And in fact, I think what's interesting is just last week, there was another publication sort of retracting more of that link. Initially, it was thought that the link was probably due to estrogen. More recently, it's been found that only those women who took estrogen plus progesterone had that risk. And in fact, it was only women who were older at the time that they started the therapy. So typically, they had to be, if they were 60 years or older, and typically 5 years or more past menopause before starting hormone therapy, that may be a higher risk. Now, in the interim between 2002 and 2020, our practices around hormone therapy have also changed quite a bit. First of all, there's a lot more usage of natural, what we call bioidentical hormones. That is, using the hormones that your body produces rather than some exogenous substance, something that's created either in another animal, like a horse, right? There's the CEE, or by a drug company as a proprietary molecule. With the idea that natural molecules that are produced by your body are probably more healthy. They're things that your body is more used to dealing with. That's one thing. The second is, as you say, it's thought that starting hormone therapy earlier is probably better. And in fact, I think what we're going to be exploring is whether it's worth starting hormone therapy even before you reach menopause. Because by the time you've reached menopause, your estrogen level has already declined quite a bit for probably quite some time. And so that's where this hormone test can actually kind of help women make a decision. But I think, the decision to go on hormones and whether to do it is very personal and also depends on personal risk factors, right? Is there a history of breast cancer in the family, other cancers that are related? Is there a cardiovascular or stroke risk? Because that's a complicated story as well. Estrogen therapy seems to actually reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, but in the WHI study, there was an increased risk, however transient, associated with it. So the short answer, I think, is that hormone therapy's association with breast cancer has been much diminished and is much better understood. And the decision to go on hormone replacement therapy is very individual and that therapy can be very safe. And what we're seeing is a lot of the medical establishment is now backing that. So the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the North American Menopause Society, there are a number of societies that are now getting behind that.
Thank you for that. I think everyone that I talk to, I ask that question because it does continue to evolve.
Yeah.
It really does. And I feel like they say you have to hear something 7 times before you really fully receive it. So I figure I'll just keep having this conversation and hopefully the women will eventually feel safer to maybe look at some options that maybe they were opposed to, because that particular study I've been educated on through other conversations. And it's interesting because that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Medicine can move very quickly.
Yeah. It's been surprising actually how long it's taken to change. There was significant movement last year with studies coming out showing estrogen-only therapy actually reduces a woman's risk of breast cancer. So now for the first time, I think we're seeing the pendulum swing in the other direction.
Okay. That's good to know because I know that stuck like glue, let me tell you, because it creates fear, I think. Anything, as we know right now in the world that we're living in, anything that creates fear tends to block us from being willing to take any kind of risk.
Yeah.
Or a perceived risk, should I say. Right. May not really be a risk, but if we perceive it that way, I guess it technically is a risk. And you mentioned that women don't understand what they're going through. So when you were developing the cusp, is it educational as well as medicinal?
Absolutely. So one of the first things we did, I was starting with my own experience. As I had mentioned earlier, my mom had a difficult go in menopause. She had vertigo initially and was not able to actually get back to work normally until she started on hormone therapy. So, I had experienced a little bit of this growing up, but the first thing we did was we went out and we talked to several hundred women who were going through menopause to try and understand what their experience was like. And we found that more than half of them were experiencing symptoms without even realizing that they were. When I started asking about hot flashes or when I started asking about mood changes or anxiety, they said, oh yeah, is that related to this? And so we really have, I think a big part of the CUSP's early mission is to provide materials to help women better understand what this transition means. I think because it's highly stigmatized in our society and it's associated with a loss of fertility rather than a gain of freedom, which might be another way to look at it. Many women, I think, don't talk about it and don't share information with their friends. And so what the CUSP has done so far is we've done several webinars that we post, and we're going to be posting more articles, short videos, other educational materials to get the word out there about what to expect. And like I was saying, this test that we're offering is really, I think it's half education and half personalized care, because there is so much to explain and understand. So what we really hope is that when women go through this process, which involves a test and then a clinical visit, that they come out feeling like they better understand what menopause is. We certainly give them a 5 or 6 page report with lots of information about it. So,
well, and if I can interject around that issue of women almost being in a little bit of either denial or not being as educated about menopause. I have many friends who are very, very smart women. And, one of them had said to me, "Oh, I didn't really have menopause. I just sailed right through it." And I said, "Oh, really? You're so lucky." And she said, yeah, I had no hot flashes at all. And I said, "Well, menopause isn't just hot flashes. Like, how is sex with your husband? I mean, is your vagina dry? She's like, "Oh my God, sex is so painful. I can't even have sex with him anymore. I mean, it's just my vagina's dry, my skin is dry, everything is dry. It's like a desert." And I said, "That's menopause. And there's something you can do about that." So there's this issue of women being in denial and being very afraid to even really talk about it, not just with their doctor, but even amongst their friends. So I think there's education plays a really key role in that. And I'm really pleased that at the cusp, that's something that we have a big commitment to, is that level of education through, as Taylor was saying, webinars and articles.
It's interesting, this topic of discussing things, talking about things, getting things out into the open. When I've talked to people about trauma, different kinds of things that happen, there's an element of shame around some conversations. And the less we talk about it, the greater the shame. Yeah. It's kind of counterintuitive. And I think, I don't know, I'm not a person who likes to have, sex conversations on my podcast. I haven't done it. And I haven't done it on purpose because I'm incredibly outgoing until with that. And I don't talk to my friends about it. Like, I don't want to know about your sex life. But I think in this particular context, I think it is important to know all the aspects that are happening to a woman's body. They say we're a thumbprint of our mother, right? I don't know if that still stands, but my mother had a hysterectomy at 21 for fibroid tumors. So I'm obviously an only child because she had me young and then she had a hysterectomy. So I didn't have that thumbprint to kind of know about. And so I can look back now and see how that impacted my mom's emotional state. I can look back from what I've learned from so many great experts is like in the late 60s, early 70s, they didn't have the same resources. Right. They kind of did the same thing for everyone. And I think that's an important thing. My thought process is we need to release the shame and have the conversation. We need to understand this is the way we are designed. And while it's different for each woman, the community aspect, like what the cusp is offering and the education, is something that we need in order to spend the second half of our life with more vitality. Yes. And not being afraid of menopause or what menopause will mean in 10 years. And so with that thought in mind of the community that the cusp offers and what we need as women, reducing the shame and having the conversation, how do you invite women into this community, and how can women engage with this community in a way that empowers them to not be afraid and to really be able to acknowledge that this is just a normal part of living and you can actually have a normal life during and after?
I'll start. Valerie, why don't you feel free to chime in. I mean, the easiest way to interact with the cusp is to become a member. Once you become a member, there's kind of free-flowing communication between you and our care team. We have resources right now that are for members only to really help them better understand what's going on. And we have different types of group events. I think we're still exploring and expanding the way that the community will internally interact, but we already have very robust communication between all of our different providers and our members. And I think what we're engaged in here is trying to provide a longitudinal program to help women not only right now overcome those symptoms and overcome the challenges that you face as you go into perimenopause, but really setting yourself up for a better second half of life. And that includes things like, maybe changing your diet, trying out something new, trying out different kinds of exercise. Weight-bearing exercise is really important as women age. Things like intermittent fasting or yoga or meditation. There are a number of things that are worth considering at this particular juncture because they do have a big impact as women age. And so we're here to help try to support and provide some of that information where we can, and then help women get connected so that they can support each other through this.
Yeah. I would add that, the first step of being a part of the cusp community, as Taylor said, is becoming a member. And we have this group of excellent providers that Taylor spoke of in the beginning, and that is their first connection point with the cusp, is with that provider, with their clinician, because we recognize here at the cusp that every woman's menopause journey, perimenopause and menopause journey, is very unique. You highlighted that just a second ago, Gina, in that, we each go through it very differently. My experience is going to be very different than yours and very different than that of your listeners. So that first point of connection comes with our providers, and our providers really dig deep to understand their individual symptoms, what things are going on within not only just their physiological symptoms, but also their emotional and psychological, issues that are happening in life. I mean, look at right now, with COVID-19, there's a lot of discussions around, isolation and sheltering in place. And those clinicians and providers then take that information about you, the woman, your unique needs, and comes up with a very unique treatment plan towards that. If you're uncomfortable with hormones, then we have other options and avenues with which to provide treatment and care for. If you are uncomfortable being in a community and group session talking about those things that might be uncomfortable subjects for you, you don't have to participate in those. You can have that one-on-one connection with your provider if that's the way that you want to engage at the cusp. So we really leave it up to the woman and her unique individual needs to be able to let her determine and call the shots as to how she wants that interaction to happen. But really, we're so committed to giving those treatment plans and care plans so that women can get the relief that they need from their menopause symptoms. And as Taylor said, more importantly, set them up for long-term health, right? And set them up so that as they go through this journey, it's not going to be about like, oh, just take these pills or take these hormones or here's this supplement to take and bye-bye. Because your situation changes as you go through menopause. Our second halves of life, our post-reproductive years, there are more changes that happen in these years than happen in our first half of life, right? So we have puberty, we have our reproductive years, we have our children, and then we go straight into the post-reproductive years, but things change so rapidly. So we recognize that at the cusp. And what I love about our care providers and our clinicians is that they really stick with you every step of the way. And my, dosages might change of certain things. Like I have had to go up in my gabapentin dosages. I've had to think about getting a higher dose of Imvexy for my estrogen treatment. And all of those things are really helpful for me because they help keep me safe and keep me healthy.
I love the idea of that personalized attention, because what I'm finding is that that's the problem women are having.
Yeah.
They're having difficulty finding that attention, somebody who will sit down and listen to them long enough to understand them. Because like Taylor, you said, women don't understand what they're going through. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But when you expect, and fairly enough, a doctor to give you the time to help you figure all that out. And if you can't find that, there is a real sense of, well, I guess I'm just going to have to tough this out. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to bite the bullet. Well, I guess I'm just going to be, hating the way my husband looks, or some women, I had a woman say one time, I just hated the way my husband chewed. Like, that was like a menopause symptom for her, was her husband's chewing just drove her nuts. And I'm like, well, that kind of sucks for him. So I feel like this particular resource has hope attached to it. For those of us who, I think I mentioned before I hit record, are looking for options that might be outside of your traditional go in, oh, you don't feel good? Here, take this prescription. I went through that with a thyroid disease, and I fought with my endocrinologist, and he wouldn't have conversations with me. And I remember being frustrated because I'm like, okay, I feel nauseous, I have headaches, and I know it's now that I know I have a thyroid disease that was hyperthyroid. What can I do naturally? He wouldn't listen. Like, he would literally hand me a prescription and send me out the door. And I remember thinking, well, this isn't very encouraging, you know, and I understand that that is a common, there's great doctors, there's attentive doctors, but there's a lot of them that just want to prescribe. And so the reason I thought the cusp would be a good match for my community is because they are very responsive to a more holistic approach. And so I love that you say that what the cusp offers is the spectrum of treatment, an individualized protocol. I think that's so important for us to feel confident that we don't have to feel crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're losing our minds and our lives in this process, that we don't have to like just assume like Eeyore, well, here comes another day, you know?
No, absolutely not. And I mean, this is something that I think several of us have come from that background. So I've always had a bent toward offering both, personally, as a doctor, obviously I've learned how to provide allopathic medicine, but I've always had a bent for also trying out natural solutions. And it's something that I think I've sort of grown up with. It was actually the same thing. My mother also had hyperthyroidism, and they wanted to actually irradiate her thyroid, and she refused to do it and went to see a bunch of naturopathic physicians and eventually was able to figure it out. So yes, and what I think we have learned in the meantime is that I would bet it's close to half of the U.S. population that seeks things that are outside of traditional medicine, right? So assuming that that is the norm, what we want to do is provide the best, most effective solutions that have come out of that world and pair them with medical solutions in a way that they don't conflict. Because one of the things that I think we also saw was, and Valerie, I'm sure you can speak to this, a lot of women, they go see a naturopath, they go see a chiropractor, they go see their doctor, and then they're left trying to figure out how to fit all those pieces together. And we didn't want them to have to do that. So we pulled all those experts together and we created one set of protocols that will all work together. So women can get all their care at a single point. And I think that is a big part of what we offer that so far I think is not really out there.
Right. And I think importantly, you don't have to tell your story over and over and over again, which is exhausting, right? Because to your point, Gina, the reason why I sought out the cusp is because I love my gynecologist, love her, like will never, ever stray from her. But it's just, you have 10 to 15 minutes with them. And it's like, here, take this, be gone, right? At the cusp, you really feel as if you're listened to, but more importantly, your provider, your clinician can go out to like a mental health expert or a sexual health expert or a nutritionist and say, Valerie has been struggling. She's gained a few pounds. We're trying this intermittent fasting, and really bring that care back to me so that I don't have to go to that nutritionist and retell my story. My provider is telling that story and representing me, and then bringing the best of the best care back to my care plan, which I really appreciate, and, guiding me through that, whether it's a holistic approach or a hormone replacement therapy approach, or even a lifestyle change. I mean, I find I've had to do a lifestyle change. I'm doing intermittent fasting now, the 16-8 version, where, I only eat for 8 hours during the day, but I don't eat for 16 hours. And it works. My weight is completely under control now. I feel really great. I feel healthy. I can exercise. And that's a key lifestyle change that came as a result of the cusp.
I like the advocacy piece. It feels like you have an advocate, the way you describe the care. Mm-hmm. So I tell one person the story of my hormonal journey, and it goes into a system that other people have access to create a tribe of doctors that can contribute to the overall well-being of the client, of the patient. That's what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think there are really three parts to it. The first is when we started the company, we pulled together the experts, and we do this periodically. And we actually wrote down what we thought the right protocols would be, right, to offer to women. So depending on what set of symptoms she comes in with, depending on, what risks she has, what are the options for creating really solid personalized care? And that is the basic roadmap that all of our clinicians use. And we actually have software that can monitor and update and make sure that we're providing the level of care that we hope. When there are additional issues that come up during a visit, the individual provider, if they have a question that's not answered in the protocols or that's outside, they can go and talk with any one of those experts and get additional information so that they can find out what those additional or recommendations would be, or how would they handle this particular situation. And then if that's not enough, we can occasionally, what we will do is have groups of physicians come together to address a particular case, because there are always situations that you can't deal with, or that, where whatever treatment you tried didn't work. And so we have that sort of third level of care to handle situations where we can't figure things out.
That's what I went through with the birth control. It took a group of doctors to figure out what in the world was happening. And I appreciated that. I think, though, back to the idea of being a part of this group, I really feel like it's important that we feel safe in the process. And then also,
absolutely, that
the community of women around us, that we all learn together and begin that conversation. Because, it does feel like it's something you just have to go through. So you just bite the bullet and do what you have to do. But I think that feeling safe within this medical community, and also the reason I keep having this conversation on my podcast, is I'm trying to get that conversation normalized, mm-hmm. so that people feel like there's hope. Back to that hope again. It's that safety and that hope, because it can be very discouraging. We talked about how I struggled with vertigo a little bit, and some of the things that I take have really leveled that out, but that's debilitating, really.
Absolutely.
And I think there are symptoms that maybe not all doctors are aware of, or not all women are aware of. It would be nice in a perfect world if there was like a list of symptoms, but I know that it doesn't work like that necessarily. But I think it would be nice to have a place to go when something odd like that happens and no one else is experiencing that but you. It can feel scary. And so I like the idea that the cusp is a place that's all the experts are there. To Valerie's point, or to your point, I forget who said it. Whoever said you go to the chiropractor, you go to the gynecologist, you go to the doctor, you go to this, and then we have to piece ourselves together. That's a bit of a problem. One question that has come up in my mind is this something that would be out of pocket? Can you use your insurance? Like, how does that piece work?
So currently, you can use your FSA and HSA to pay for any of the cusp services. And most of the time now, the issue is that people have widely varying insurance policies, right? And so your coverage actually will depend on how well your insurance covers these things. But we find that most of our members get their prescriptions covered. Almost all of them get their lab tests covered. And most of the additional care, sometimes, for instance, women will need to get mammography or other things, we try to make sure that they've had all their appropriate preventive care. And most insurance will cover that too. So we have really good success getting women coverage for any downstream services from the cusp. And then for the cusp services themselves, they can all be paid for with FSA and HSA. So most insurance will cover prescriptions, labs, and any downstream services. And then FSA and HSA can be used to pay for our services. We can also provide a super bill and sometimes get billed as out-of-network physicians.
What happens if somebody doesn't have a traditional medical insurance policy? Mm-hmm. How does the cusp work for someone who might be a cash
pay? So, the cusp services are always a standard rate, right? So, and you can see our rates on our website. If a woman doesn't have insurance, then she'll probably want to talk with her provider about the best route to get laboratory testing or prescriptions taken care of. For instance, since we're now offering the at-home hormone test, that can be a fixed price as well. So, as we continue to bring out more services under the umbrella of the cusp, I think it'll be easier for women who are cash pay to figure those things out. I think the only issue can arise when women without insurance are trying to figure out sort of those downstream costs. And that's part of I think the real value of our care coordinators is that they really help women navigate the health system. So they'll help, get mammograms scheduled, or they can help figure out where's the best place to get your black cohosh, and actually, for supplements, we provide a deep discount and they can get them directly through us. We felt that was really important because supplements aren't regulated the same way that medicines are. And so, the brand as well as the dose is very important. So we have very specific recommendations around that. And that's all covered at a very straightforward price. And usually what you'll find is our prices are at a discount to anything you could get on, say, Amazon or wherever else.
That's a good point. It is really daunting, because I do believe wholeheartedly in integrative medicine and the power of supplements. And there's a doctor that a lot of my friends use who is integrative and MD, but she also uses herbs. And, so she creates these proprietary blends for people and it works really well for them. But if you're trying to do it on your own, like I said, if you're just really struggling to find the support that you need, that's really challenging. And that's another benefit that I see from what you offer is giving women the power to have options that feel safe. Not like you're totally winging it. Because, menopause feels like you're winging it already.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. Every day.
Yeah.
The emotional side of menopause makes it even more complicated to make good decisions.
Yeah, sure. Or, the brain fog that comes along with it, right? Estrogen is intimately linked with metabolism in the brain. And so, with estrogen fluctuations that happen in perimenopause, it's not surprising that women have changes in their cognition, right? It's to be expected.
I want to add on to what Taylor was saying about our care coordinators, because I think we've been talking a lot about our providers and our clinicians, but our care coordinators are so incredible here. They're the glue. They're the ones that are really helping the women and our members access that quality care, answer any questions that they have, that to the brain fog point that Taylor just made, if they forget something that happened on their virtual visit with their clinician provider, they can chat and text with their care coordinator and say, was that black cohosh or was that, I forget what she wanted me to get from Welevate, and was it Welevate or something else? The care coordinator can then bring that information together for them. So it's not just the doctor that members are meeting with, but it's also a care coordinator who's there in the background making everything happen. And we have the best of the best here. So
it's like having a wedding planner, but for your hormones.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to.
Exactly.
That's right.
I need one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what is it important, do you think, Taylor, for women to understand about menopause and why cusp is such a valuable resource to them? Because it is every woman goes through it, whether it's forced on them through a surgery or it comes along naturally. And now we're seeing that menopause is starting a lot earlier for some women as well. We have a tendency to think of it as an age spot, but it's not that much the truth anymore, I see.
No, well, I think it's maybe from a lack of understanding. I'm not sure how much of it is how much menopause is changing versus how much our understanding of it is really changing. It's as Dr. Brizendine likes to say, it's a 2 to 10 year dance, right? For women, it can be incredibly variable in terms of how long it lasts. Sometimes it starts in the, mid to late 30s, and sometimes it doesn't start until the early 50s. But I would say that the single most important thing to understand about menopause is that, your hormones will change, and that change will have an impact on your body. Like Valerie was saying, I don't think I've met a woman who actually hasn't been impacted by it as she goes through menopause. The decision is really whether you are able to take the time to understand it or not, right? The drop in estrogen that you experience, the change in progesterone, the sort of resulting changes across thyroid hormone and a number of different hormones will impact the way your body works. But it's not something that you have to grin and bear, right? I think the hardest thing is that I think women who are experiencing these changes and go look for help often don't find it right away. And so the key, I think, is to be persistent or just come to the cusp,
Yeah.
You know, we're here for you. And, you know, we have really tried to put all those resources together to make that journey smooth and to make it understandable and to offer women the options that they're looking for together in one place. Mm-hmm. Number one, it will impact you. Number two, there are resources available. You do not have to grin and bear
it. And I would say, like, you know, our at-home hormone test that we've just launched is really a critical piece of that too, in terms of understanding where you are in that journey, right? And this is an FDA-approved test that's been done on thousands of women. It's very unique in terms of how it measures, you know, your hormone levels. We measure 3 key hormones, and that is going to be a great predictor, along with your virtual visit with our clinician, because our clinician is then going to be able to go through your symptoms and what you've been experiencing and map the results of the test up with what you're going through to be able to give you an accurate prediction of when you will reach menopause, right? Is it going to be 2 years? Is it going to be a year? Do we need you to come back in 6 months or a year later to take the test again? You know, because it might be further out, like 3 or 5 years. But I think it's really important for women to understand when they're going to start going through this change so that they can be better prepared for it. Because as Taylor said up at the beginning of this, the more preparation we have, we're going to set ourselves up for a longer term healthy outcome in midlife and beyond, right? And if I can avoid disease now, or some of those issues now, like osteoporosis, like, diabetes because of certain things I might be doing with my lifestyle, or my glucose spikes, and there's some connection of menopause to Alzheimer's. Like, if I can set myself up now by understanding when I'm going to reach menopause, what I can do now, and then what I'll do once I start really getting into the thick of it, that is going to set me up for a healthy life, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how can a woman prepare? Because you talk about, knowing what your symptoms are and all those kind of things. How can a woman prepare to have that conversation with the clinician so that they can come as informed about themselves, and what do they need to inform the clinician about that will make the cusp experience much more successful and helpful?
So we try to provide some of those materials up front. We actually ask an in-depth questionnaire prior to the visit. So there are a number of things that hopefully she's already providing. We have articles on our website that describe the different symptoms, that describe some of the different types of treatments. And I would say, just briefly, to touch on what Valerie mentioned, beyond the symptoms that I think you can find in a number of places that are related to menopause, like there are 20 or 30, depending on who you ask. But the things that women really don't know are that the changing hormones actually put them at risk for a number of diseases. In particular, cardiovascular disease is a big one. So dropping estrogen actually puts you at risk for cardiovascular disease. And that can be somewhat abrogated with hormone therapy, actually. Diabetes is another one where there are changes in cortisol that go along with these rises and dips in estrogen. And those cortisol changes impact your glucose. I think on average, women who have hot flashes have around a 33% higher blood glucose. And that has big impacts over the longer term, both metabolically and in terms of risk of diabetes. There's a clear association with short-term memory issues around menopause and a potential association with Alzheimer's. And it's not clear whether that's related to the working memory or whether that's related to the metabolic risks that go along with it. In fact, some people have called Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. And we know that 2 out of 3 people who get Alzheimer's are women. So women are at a much increased risk. And then there's a clear association with osteoporosis, which is why weight-bearing exercise is so important, as well as potentially with certain types of cancer. And so understanding that these changes in hormones actually put you at risk and being able to get ahead of that makes a huge impact, I think, in the second half of life. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thanks, Valerie.
That's kind of scary information from a lay person's standpoint.
Yes, it can be. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be. So the good news is that we have great ways to identify when you're at risk for these diseases and to help avoid them. And we have, dietary and lifestyle changes that can help. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go on medication. All it means is that you have to be prepared. and that you have to be willing to put in some time and some effort to have a healthy lifestyle.
And Valerie, how has that been helpful for you? Because you shared before we hit record that you are also going through a cancer journey right now. So share a little bit for a couple of minutes about how this has helped you in that aspect.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I am going through on a cancer journey right now, and it's, obviously very stressful. So having the stress of menopause to layer on top of that was never a good thing. And I feel incredibly more relaxed about it. I also feel like there's a lot of solutions available to me. My cancer is not hormone related. I'm HER2 positive, which means I have more of the human epidural growth factor that is overproducing, that causes my cancer to grow. But I am able to do some form of hormone therapy, which I'm really happy about because it has brought so much relief for me, and I have so much comfort around that. My cancer care team is fully on board with it. They're so happy that I found the cusp. And in fact, they're like, we need to tell more women at UCSF Breast Cancer Center about the cusp because this is great, because they don't have the time to be able to deal with my menopausal issues as well as my cancer issues. They want to focus strictly over there. And that's really important to them. So they are very happy that I found this resource and that there's that connection and that communication back and forth that I'm the bridge for right now, but eventually we want to be that bridge for all women between their entire care ecosystem. So I think that that's been a great part of my journey, is that I didn't feel like I had to then suffer through cancer with all of the treatments that I'm having and then have to go through menopause with no relief in sight. And like I said, I'm able to use an estrogen suppository, vaginal suppository, which has absolutely changed my life. And I'm so happy about it. And then also just the intermittent fasting. It's not only proven to have great results for women that are going through menopause in terms of managing their weight, but also my cancer care team is very like intermittent fasting. It's the best way to keep control of, the things that are causing the cancers to grow. So all of this has been really in collaboration, but then also making me feel like I'm not alone. Like I don't have to just focus on one area. I have a whole, holistic approach towards my care.
I think it's fantastic that you're here with us today, not only as a menopausal woman, but as a woman who's going through a cancer journey, because I feel like sometimes back to early in our conversation, we talked about that conversation of hormones and cancer being linked, remember, in 2002. And I feel like there is some fear around that idea. And I love having someone who has walked that journey and is able to say, no, you can actually protect yourself.
Right.
And have cancer and do hormone replacement therapy without hurting yourself.
Exactly. And every woman is different. I want to stress that. So my journey is very different. I don't want, all women to think, especially women that might be concerned about cancer or have cancer, that they're going to be able to have the exact experience that I do. It's just, but that's the beauty of the cusp, right? Is that here I am going through this journey and there are experts that can help me through that understand the type of breast cancer that I have and what can be done, to help me with my menopause journey. But every woman is different. And I think that's the main thing. And I want to make that clear, is that, at the cusp, we really treat you as the individual that you are. And that to me is what I appreciate the most. I feel listened to. I feel that I'm validated in terms of what I'm going through. And I love what you said earlier on, Gina. You nailed on something that I might have to use in our marketing materials, sorry, but vitality. Like I finally feel like there's this vitality that's come back in my life. And I love that word because it's, I'm not sure menopause is empowering, but there is a vitality to it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for that. That's a really great way to think about it.
I think part of my message is that we can have this incredible, as you said, post-productive life. We did we're shifting productive from babies to living our own life, right? We're producing something different. I love the hope that this brings. That word has just really stuck with me as you've shared your vision and your mission today. And I do hear you that every woman is different, but every woman can fit at the cusp. And I think that is the key. Yes, every woman is different, but the fact that every woman can still come and have an experience where she feels seen and heard and understood, which I think for most women is just a general need, you know. But in this particular case, to have a place to go where we can get what we need without feeling like we're fighting for it has got to be an amazing experience. So how do people get in touch with the cusp, Taylor?
The easiest way is just to come to our website, the-cusp.com. You can email us at support@the-cusp. We also have a phone number. We'd love to talk with you.
Yes.
That would be amazing. So we've really talked about just how positive the experience can be with the right kind of support, and that the support, when it is individualized, makes a huge difference in the quality of health and living going forward for women. What are 3 things you really want women to take away from today? And I would like 3 things from both of you, to be completely honest, from this conversation, from the cusp, from your experience, however the frame works for you. What are 3 things each of you want women to anchor in on to kind of start their journey of, you know, a healthier, happier, less scary menopause experience?
You want to go first?
Sure. I'll start with the takeaways. The first thing is that women, Gina's tribe, you're not alone. It's important to know that you're not alone out there in this, and that your experience is unique, and there are resources out there to help you address those unique issues on that journey. The second thing is that I think it's really critical and important for women to know where they are in their journey. And I can't stress that enough. Like, if you can identify where you are in your journey, then you can set yourself up for making that journey as seamless as possible. And then the third thing is, you know, we're just really excited to be here. I'm so grateful to Taylor for creating this company and this opportunity and recognizing this gap in the market and this gap in the healthcare system that was existing, and finding a way to really, fill that gap. So those are my 3 takeaways. You're not alone. Understand where you are, and gratitude.
Huge.
Gratitude is huge.
It's huge.
Awesome. I don't think there's nothing I can really add to that. Actually, there is one thing. I want to extend that gratitude to Valerie and to the rest of the team. You know, we've been lucky to pull together what I think is really a world-class team to work on this and make this service available for women. Come visit us at the cusp.
Yes, please.
So what are the next best steps for someone, Taylor?
Reach out, come check out. We have 2 main offerings right now. Usually there are 2 starting points. One would be the at-home hormone test, honestly, is a great starting point for most women if they're in perimenopause or around menopause. So I would suggest starting there. If you're struggling with particular symptoms related to menopause, or you think they might be related to menopause, our expert care service is probably the best place to start. And you can just go make an appointment. If you're not sure, or if you think you might have a different situation, then email us at support@the-cusp.com, or just give us a call.
And we answer those personally.
Yes.
So you will literally either get a response from me or Taylor or Christina or Lori and somebody on the team. But yeah, we don't hide behind, thank you, support at the cusp. It's like we answer. So.
Oh, good, because I'm really tired of those emails.
I know, right? Yeah.
I've had enough of those pretend answers.
Yes.
So I am so grateful that you guys took the time to sit with me today and to share your vision, your mission, your passion. I think this is really, truly a life-changing conversation. This could be the difference in a woman's life between a good quality and a less than good quality life. You know, you guys are offering something that elevates the quality of a woman's experience. It lowers the stress and fear. It raises the hope and vitality. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us, Gina. It was really great.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. And thank you, Gina Tribe, for listening to us today. It's really great to have you guys as a part of this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that my tribe is going to be very grateful to know that there's a place out there that we can go and that we don't just have to bite the bullet. Thank you, Jesus. Sometimes that bullet feels like it's on fire. Goodness. So thank you again. So today, my friends, I've been speaking with Taylor-Sittler. He's the co-founder at the-cusp. He's a physician entrepreneur. And Valerie Williamson, member of the the-cusp management team and a menopausal woman who is also a client of the-cusp. Friends, this is telemedicine for perimenopause and menopause that extends into a vital midlife. If you want to get a hold of these links quickly, please head over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 188. And while you're there, please leave your name and email address and join my tribe. That way you don't miss anything, and I do send out periodic emails. Friends, it's so important that we begin to have these conversations and that we don't compound the shame or fear around what is a natural part of our life. And friends, you can be seen, you can be heard. There are solutions to it. You don't have to suffer. Please listen, gather the resources, reach out to the-cusp, see if it is a good match for you. It doesn't hurt to check it out. So friends, I wish you greater health, greater power in your hormonal life, and a great week this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.